Great. Good morning, my dear friends. In this video, we are going to discuss about final variable. So, final variable is a variable which is prefixed with final keyword. So, when we declare a variable as final variable, when we declare a variable with final keyword, we cannot change its value. The value of final variable remains constant throughout the program. So, and in case if we try to change the value of final variable, then we will get compilation error. Okay, let us see here practically. Okay, we have two types of variables. One is local variable and second one is global variable. Let us work with local variable first. Later on we will work on global variable. Okay, so I'm going to take a local variable int a. Okay, I have taken a local variable int a. So I have just declared it. See, one point that you need to remember here is a local variable cannot be used without initialization. Okay, so local variable cannot be used without initialization, and if we try to access a local variable without initialization, we will get compile time error. For example, I have declared a variable a here. Okay, I didn't initialize it, and if I try to access it, okay, I'll get compile time error, because local variable must be initialized in order to use it. Okay, if I run the program, I'm going to get compile time error. Because a local variable must be initialized in order to use it. So okay, so and I will initialize it. Okay, I will initialize it here as for example 4. Okay, if I run the program, I'm going to get output as 4. Okay, so I can reinitialize it. As a is equal to 8. I can reinitialize it. If I run the program, I'm going to get 8 as output. Okay, I'm going to get 8 as output. I can reinitialize it. I'm going to reinitialize it at 6. Okay, if I reinitialize it, I'm going to get output as 6. Okay, I can reinitialize how many times I want. Okay, for example, if this local variable is declared as final. Okay, for example, if this local variable is declared as final. Okay, and if I run the program, I'm going to get output as 4. But once if a variable is initialized, I cannot reinitialize it. Okay, I cannot reinitialize it. Okay, if I try to run the program, so in 6th line I have declared a local variable as final, and in 7th line I am trying to reinitialize its value. Okay, so a final variable cannot be reinitialized. The value of final variable remains constant. So I'm trying to change final variable value here. So what I'm going to get is I'm going to get compile time error. Okay, I'm going to get compile time error. So you need to remember 2 points. Okay, local variable can be used without initialization. Oh, sorry. Okay, local variable cannot be used without initialization. Okay, and local variable can be reinitialized how many times we want. We can reinitialize n number of times, but if a local variable is declared as final, we cannot change its value. We cannot reinitialize it. We can only initialize it once. Okay, that is how local variable works. Okay, let us work with global variable. We have two types of global variable. One is static variable and second one is non-static variable. Okay, let us work with static variable. Okay, see, static variables can be used without initialization. Local variables can be used without initialization because they have default values. Okay, global variables have default values. Okay, let me show you it practically. Okay, so I'm going to take a static variable. So static variable is prefixed with a static keyword. So I'm going to take int p. Okay, so I'm just declaring a variable. I didn't initialize it. Okay, what is the point that we have seen? Static variables can be used without initialization. Okay, here we have a variable which is not initialized. If I try to access this value, I will successfully access it. Okay, before that I need to remove it. Okay, I will be successfully access p value because p has default value. P is a global variable. It has default values. So 0. I will be able to access p because it is a global variable. Okay, it has default values. For example, if this global variable is declared as final, if it is declared as final, I cannot access it without initialization. Okay, that point you need to remember here. Okay, see, so static variables can be used without initialization, but if static variable is declared as final, it must be initialized, otherwise it will throw compile time error. Okay, if I try to access its value, if I try to access p, okay, I'm going to get compile time error because p value is not initialized. P is a static variable. P is a global variable. That is right. You need not initialize a global variable in order to access it. But if it is declared as final, it must be initialized. Okay, it must be initialized. Okay, for example, I will take p value as 67. If I try to run the program, I am going to get p value as 67, a value for p value as 67. In case, okay, if I didn't initialize that at the time of declaration, I think you know what do you mean by declaration, what do you mean by installation. If you don't know, means just check the description. There is another video that I have made on what is declaration, what is initialization. Okay, so if in case, okay, coming back to the video, okay, in case if p is not initialized at the time of declaration, how can I initialize it? Can I initialize it in the next line? Can I initialize it in the next line? See, let us see. Okay, 78. Okay, so I have not initialized p variable at the time of declaration. I'm trying to initialize it in the next line of that variable declaration. So can I get output? Can I get output as 78? Definitely no. Okay, I will get compile time error. Okay, there is slow process. I'll get compile time error. Why? Because I cannot initialize a static variable. I cannot initialize a static final variable wherever I want. I can only initialize a static final variable in static block only. Okay, that point I have mentioned here. Okay, see, in case if a static final variable is not initialized during declaration, can only be initialized in static block, otherwise it will throw compile time error. So what I'm going to do, what I did in the program is, I have initialized p variable, okay, and I have declared it as final, and I'm trying to reinitialize its value in the next line, okay, which is not possible. If a variable is declared as final, I can only reinitialize. If static variable is declared as final, I can only reinitialize it in the static block. So I have to remove this. I have to create a static block. If you ask me what is static block, okay, a block which is prefixed with static keyword is called static block. I can only reinitialize. I can only initialize p value here. Okay, I can only initialize p value here. I'm going to initialize p value as 78. If I run the program, I'm going to get output as 4 and 78, because we can only initialize static final variable in static block only. We cannot initialize it anywhere in the program. Okay, this is how static variable works. Let's work with the non-static variable. Okay, let me take non-static variable. So int s. Okay, so one point that you need to remember is, in order to access a non-static variable, object creation is mandatory. You need to create an object of the class. You cannot access non-static variables without object creation. Let me create an object here. Okay, let me create an object. So what is class name is final. Okay, so final variable. Okay, so I have to give variable name is obj. Okay, obj1. So I'm going to create final variable. Okay, I have created final variable. So I have created object of final of this class. I can only access non-static variables with object creation only. Object creation is mandatory in order to access non-static variables. If I want to access non-static variables, I have to use object reference variable. Okay, what is object reference variable? obj1 dot s. Okay, this is how I'm able to access non-static variable. If I try to run the program, okay, I'll get output as G. Sorry, wait a minute. Sorry, I have to use semicolon here. Yeah, if I try to run the program, okay, so I'm going to get s value as 0 because s is a non-static variable. S is a non-static variable which is a global variable. It has default values. Okay, so this is how it works. Okay, for example, if this non-static variable is declared as final, okay, if I try to access it, okay, I'm going to get compile time error. Okay, I'm going to get compile time error because you cannot use a non-static variable without initialization if it is declared as final. Okay, so what I have to do, I have to reinitialize it. I have to initialize it with some value. Okay, 29. Okay, if I try to run the program, I'm going to get s value as 29 now. 29 now. For example, I have not initialized it at the time of declaration. I have not initialized a non-static variable at the time of declaration. Where can I initialize it? In the next line? Do you think that you can initialize it in the next line? So for example, initialize it in the next line. If I try to run the program, okay, I'm successfully getting compilation time error because you cannot initialize a non-static variable in the next line. You cannot initialize a non-static variable wherever you want. Okay, if it is declared as final. If a non-static variable is declared as final and it is not initialized at the time of declaration, you can only initialize in the constructor. Okay, that I have mentioned it very clearly. Okay, in case if a non-static final variable is not initialized during declaration, is known as blank final variable. We must initialize the blank final variable in the constructor of the class. Okay, you need to create constructor. Okay, how do we create constructor? Constructor name should always be same as class name. Okay, I have to create a constructor. Okay, I have created a constructor. So in that I have to initialize s value. I'm going to initialize it as 45. If I try to run the program, okay, I'll successfully get all the values. Okay, wait a minute. Constructor, okay, constructor should have constructor symbols. Okay, if I run the program, I'm going to get all the values successfully. See, look here, a value is 4, p value is 78, s value is 45. Okay, let us discuss the summary of the video. Okay, so if local variables cannot be used without initialization. Okay, so in order to if a local variable is declared as final, we have to initialize it once. Okay, we can initialize it in the next line also. Okay, but if a local variable is not initialized, okay, for example, if a local variable is not initialized, we cannot use it. Okay, that is how local variable works. Coming to global variables, static variable. Coming to global variables, we have two types: static variable and non-static variable. Okay, coming to static variables can be used without initialization also. Okay, but if it is declared as final, if a static variable is declared as final, it must be initialized, otherwise it will throw compile time error. For example, it is not declared at the time of declaration. Okay, where can I initialize it? You can initialize it in the static block. You need to create static block and you can initialize its value in the static block. Okay, coming to non-static variable can be used without initialization, but if it is declared as final, you must initialize it, otherwise it will throw compile time error. For example, it is not declared at the time of declaration. Okay, where can I initialize it? You can initialize it in the constructor of the class. Okay, you can initialize it in the constructor. Okay, that is how local variable can be initialized in the next line only. Okay, if it is a final variable, it can be only initialized once. Okay, for example, if a global variable like static variable is not initialized at the time of declaration, if it is a final variable. Okay, I'll repeat the line. Okay, for example, if a global variable like static variable is declared as final and it is not declared at the time and it is not initialized at the time of declaration, we can only initialize it in the static block. Okay, coming to non-static variable. Okay, non-static variable can be used without initialization also, but if it is declared as final, it must be initialized. For example, if it is not declared for example, it is not initialized at the time of declaration, where can I initialize it? It can be initialized in the constructor of the class. Object creation is mandatory in order to access a non-static variable. Okay, that is how all this works. Okay, hope you are clear with this video. Okay, thank you so much for watching.